Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, simulcasting for the first time with Action4Assange. You're looking at Taylor Hudak right there, and then everybody else. I should get out of the way here so you can see Ian Schlackman joining us as a guest, Christy Doff, the other co-host. There's Steve from Slow News Day, and of course, Andrew as well. So I'm just going to let Taylor kick this off, and basically what we're going to be doing a couple times a month, we're going to simulcast here, and then if you want to keep with them, because they do this for 3-4 hours, which is a little bit longer than my broadcasting, you can go over to, and I'm going to put you guys over here right now, you can go check them out at Action4Assange or subscribe right now. Jump over to Action4Assange. We're simulcasting over there. So without further ado, here's the Action4Assange crew, where we'll be going over the OPCW 4 leaks and much more today. Andrew, with us, brother?
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, Jason, thank you so much for that intro. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Hudak, and I'm joined by my co-hosts this evening, as usual, Andrew Smith, Christy Doff, and Steve Poikinen. So it's the first day of the new year, New Year's Day. I hope all of you had a great New Year's Eve and you celebrated and are looking forward to 2020. We know with Action4Assange, we have some things planned ahead, some exciting new changes to be made with Action4Assange and our vigils in particular. But before we get to our guests of the evening, some stats here. Today is day 265 since the brutal arrest of WikiLeaks publisher and award-winning journalist Julian Assange, and it is 3,312 days since his unlawful and arbitrary detention. And as for Chelsea Manning, it is 294 days in jail and $185,000 in fines. Remember, she is being fined $1,000 every single day just because she is refusing to testify before a grand jury. So for this evening, we do have 2 returning guests with us. Our first guest you already saw, Jason Burmis. He is an activist, content creator, and documentary filmmaker. And we are also joined with Ian Schlackman, and he is an anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist, anti-capitalist, millennial socialist futurist. He's working with comrades like you to create an innovative, free, modern, and human rights-based social economy, or socialist economy. So thank you to both of our guests for joining us. How are you guys?
Good, great to be here.
Super fantastic. I hope everybody else is having a happy 2020. Everybody party hard last night or what?
Yeah.
No, I'm 41 and I don't do shit anymore. I did not.
Hopefully you partied for us, Jason.
I mean, I had a few. I kicked a few back. I'm not too bad today. I had a few. I'm not that old. It's okay to kick one back. But, I do want to point out, you just said $1,000 a day for Chelsea Manning. To put that in perspective, Conor McGregor, for his 19th conviction, and this is outside of all the sexual assault stuff that I talk about, for punching that old man in the face was $1,000. Think about that. You have a hero on one end that is trying to be forced to lie about another hero and being fined $1,000 a day. And you have that same judicial system here in this country trying to extradite another person on behalf of them and literally trying to silence them financially on top of it, on top of the torture. I mean, we call ourselves a first world country, but we sure pull some really fucking banana republic third world shit. Just my opinion.
No, you're absolutely right. And what
True.
Put in the chat, this is something that we talked about on Chelsea Manning's birthday vigil, but the stats were actually broken down, and I will hold that up real quick on the screen. A breakdown of Chelsea Manning's decade: 77.7%, 6% of the decade incarcerated. Over 10% of it in solitary, over half of it fighting for gender affirming care, 100% being true to myself no matter what, and 0% backing down. If you're going to spend more than 3/4 of your life, or at least your basically adult life, because she was, in her early 20s when she went in, incarcerated and still have that kind of sense of humor that shows a strength that I think most people don't have. But man, that's just, along with $1,000 a day in fines, that's an insane amount of time to be locked up just for supplying the information to WikiLeaks that she did.
And let's not forget, it's contrived double jeopardy. They can say this is a separate charge, but we all know that, again, the surprise move of the Obama administration for me was the Iran deal and was the commuting of Chelsea Manning's sentence. I didn't see that one coming, but for it to come full circle right now in the way it has, it's revolting. Steve, do you want me to play that clip? Do you guys want to play that before we get into anything else? Yes, we'll do that, Andrew.
I'll pull that up real quick.
I got it right here. I got her.
Okay.
Can we trust the media? That's the media that has called for me and my staff to be assassinated, droned, rendered, and prosecuted for espionage, for our publications and for our involvement in the Snowden case. Noam Chomsky, in The Common Good, wrote that the smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but to allow very lively debate within a narrow section of that spectrum. We live in a mediaocracy. What is politically possible is defined by the media environment. I started WikiLeaks because I understood this reality, that the media frame defines the political possibility. So to bring about meaningful change, we have to enlarge the media frame. With WikiLeaks, we've had significant successes in achieving this in some areas, but more needs to be done. The single greatest contributor to our expanding horizons is you. You telling your friends what's up, what you saw, what you believe, and who's full of it. Contrasting what appears in the Australian press to itself and to the world. You form part of the largest bullshit detecting machine that the world has ever seen. That's why WikiLeaks has such support from people exposed to the internet. That's why we have such support from this generation, because you're better informed. This is the best educated generation in the history of the world.
And there you go. And that's why they're still relevant today. You look at those leaks and the media narrative, let's talk about them. Here's the OPCW 4 leaks right behind me. I've read some of these documents, including the new emails. And now, you have Tariq Hadid, who left Newsweek saying, listen, they were literally spinning a narrative. And now what do we have? Well, we have strikes a few days ago that have now led to, basically a step closer to a proxy war with Iran, especially with what's going on in Baghdad. And if you don't think they're all connected, they absolutely are, because we have no business being in Syria in the first place.
I just want to say, God damn it, I miss Julian Assange's voice. I think it was a great idea to play that, and we need to keep playing more clips of him, because it's been so long since any of us have heard him talk. And it's as now as we're starting a new decade, it really feels like a voice missing in all the chaos right now.
Yeah, and another point I want to make too here is that as we are, not to get into the election, I don't want to get into that at all, but as we look towards 2020 and we are entering deeper into this election cycle, it's important to put pressure on the candidates, but also do it in a respectful way and not harass them and be mean about it or really hard on them about it. That's not going to get people on our side. So we need to make sure that we do push the candidates, and we've talking about Bernie Sanders in particular, pushing him in the right direction on this issue, but doing it in a kind and soft way, I guess. And then also, again, ensuring that people are covering this in independent media. Ian, what are your thoughts on that clip? Assange laid it out and said that this generation is a more informed generation than previous ones.
Sure. Let me just get back to the candidates just for a second, if I could, because I think it's really the right time to start pushing candidates on expanding their narrative on what's going on with WikiLeaks and Assange. If you look at what's going on with the grand jury system in the U.S., I think it might be a better narrative to start going after them with this grand jury angle. Because not only do you have Chelsea Manning wrapped up in the grand jury investigation now, also in jail because of that, and punitively with the damages that you mentioned financially as well. But then you also have Jeremy Hammond extending his jail sentence as well, all from the same grand jury. And there's really no oversight for the grand jury at all. If the judge and the jury and the prosecutors all agree to keep going and going and going and going, this is never going to end. And I think that's a really fundamental question we need to start asking some of the candidates that are running. You know, we in the US and I think Liberia are the only two countries in the world that have a grand jury system like this, where you can, a secret grand jury system like this. It's absolutely absurd. Where do they fall on it? What are they going to do about it? Because where does it end? Where does the secret stop? And I could speak a little bit about the media angle as well, but it kind of goes into kind of a weird place for me because I've just been thinking so much as I see the end of the year countdown as the most important people of the end of the year and whatnot. I just see so much effort on the media's part to create celebrities out of leaders of movements, and whether they're villains or whether they're heroes is sort of up to this media narrative. Like, I think they've done a really excellent job of creating a villain narrative around Tulsi Gabbard. If you even see the SNL sketches about her, she's literally portrayed as a supervillain now. It's completely insane. You see Greta, I'm going to mispronounce her name, Thunberg, as the next rising celebrity on the left when it comes to climate change, which is fantastic. The left needs more left-wing celebrities, but that's a movement. It's not a celebrity cause. Yet that's the way they want to treat everything. I work with the
become fans of these people. It's really dangerous, and we've spoken about that a lot.
Yeah.
Become fans and see them as like these rock stars and people to idolize, then they are able to get away with so much more because people give them a free pass when they act against what they promised to us.
Look, this is textbook intelligence community though. You co-opt the movement, you take all the power out of it by turning it into a fad, and then you can easily dismiss it as a passing one in the press and on TV and anywhere else. You know, it's why we have to constantly address 10-year-old smears. It's why we have to constantly explain the difference between what WikiLeaks does and what people think of as news outlets do. Well, it's all reinforcing the narrative that especially when it comes to making a movement a popular thing, it reinforces the narrative that there's only power in it if the media legitimizes it.
Well,
and the other thing too, what happens when you create heroes out of these people, is that you end up creating team dynamics to where you're no longer fighting for an idea or for a policy. You're fighting for this person regardless of what they say, what they do, how they act, the way their decisions as people with power impact your daily life. And it lets people say, hey, it's no different than the NBA. And it really fucking frustrates me to see people who genuinely believe in like substantial change to society get caught up in a personality and then just allow whoever supports that same idea to then just be divided because I don't support insert person as the champion of that idea and think everyone should champion it themselves. So
I think we've seen a lot of that on this show as we've talked about the candidates and their stance on Assange. We've seen some candidates get held accountable for their stance and other candidates, their fans, as I will call them fans, because essentially they create excuses and apologies for them because it's more about the individual rather than the ideas. Then we start to have this team blue dynamic of, we have to fight for these domestic policies. So that comes to the forefront and Julian Assange gets pushed to the back.
Well, just to talk about Tulsi Gabbard, because it was brought up really quick. First of all, me not being Team Blue or Team Red or Team any of that, and just looking at who I think would be the best candidate, at least in that Democratic perspective, it should be insane for people to not see that no one is giving Gabbard credit for being the only person to put Mattis on the spot about the Duma attacks. She is the only person that asked if a chemical attack even occurred or they had any evidence of it whatsoever. Now, this is so prophetic because this is all the way back in April of 2018. If we had an honest media, number one, there would be at least one U.S. story about these OPCW leaks. There fucking isn't. There isn't.
Well,
I've got to go to Sputnik or RT. I mean, there's not a Reuters story. There's not an AP story about these things. There's nothing leaking to them. I mean, this is only in the international media. Tariq Hadid, again, working for Newsweek, had to leave after the third set of leaks. We now have a fourth set of leaks.
Yeah.
And we don't have any moderators asking
hasn't
this.
even spoken out about, as far as I know, she's not spoken out about these leaks, unfortunately.
She did recently get asked about them. Actually, there is a YouTube clip at one of her recent events where she did address them.
What was her
but she hasn't.
response to that?
I know Dak asked her, and she said that she had not read the email. But has there been another question?
That may be the
recently?
one. I just know that she's acknowledged them out there, but we got to also remember she hasn't been on a national stage with these people yet since these last two sets of leaks. But then again, she has been on a national stage how many times and not mentioned Julian Assange in those debates. Right. Yes, when asked about it, and on Rogan's forum she's talked about it, but why not force the issue on a national stage? Not only because the candidates should answer, but the mainstream media puppets that are asking these predetermined questions should also be held accountable about Assange.
Jason,
and
what was her response, though? Like, how did she respond to that? I think the point that a lot of people are making here is the fact that she should be coming down hard on this.
Oh, big time.
And smeared as an Assad apologist, and should have been going around and really making it a major part of her campaign to say, look, I've been smeared about this, and we are finding out, in fact, that I was right all along. And then it also really...
She did a victory lap on Jimmy Dore the other day.
I
The
missed
video's
that.
up on Jimmy Dore's channel where she actually talked with him. This was probably about 3 or 4 days ago, maybe.
Okay.
Talked with him about the OPCW leaks and all that specifically, saying WikiLeaks and stuff like that on Jimmy's channel.
Yeah, so she is talking about it then, right? Because I was pretty sure she wasn't trying to hide from that.
Addressing it then.
Well, I'd say
she
this.
definitely.
At least right now,
alternative media has addressed it. I don't know if she's addressed it on any mainstream sources, but in the alternative media, she's at least talked about it once.
Okay. I'm pretty vocal on her when I disagree, as I am on all of these candidates. In fact, one of my things that I think she needs to hammer home more is Pakistan, their outward role in terror. They're funding Joe Biden, aiding and abetting that after 9/11. I mean, that should be the death knell, that Joe Biden met with one of the main financiers of 9/11 in the days after the attack period and is on tape twice talking about it being classified. That should eviscerate any kind of foreign policy for Joe Biden. But again, we don't have an honest media, and they're pushing Old Man Joe and Grandma Oatmeal and these establishment candidates. And again, I fear that Bernie, even though I know the big thing today that was trending, and he has over 5 million donors, at the end of the day, he backed down in 2016. And guys like me aren't going to forget that.
Yeah, I honestly am very cautious with him as well. I think that I thought he was a lot stronger in 2016. And then, of course, once he backed down and then supported Clinton, it made me suspicious. But I do wonder who is advising these people. But I think it's interesting also that we did see reports from mainstream media publications and outlets that he actually had a chance has the chance to be the nominee or beat Trump, per se. I know there were reports about that, which I thought was very interesting. But to go back to the OPCW, Ian, I want to get your thoughts in on this. We saw, these leaks come out, and neither side on the mainstream media has really covered it. But I think what's really more important here is the actual content of these leaks. What is your perspective on what we are seeing here, and maybe how Tulsi has perhaps failed to really address this on her own?
Well, I think it's a little amusing because anyone that even goes near the idea that Assad is a neutral player or even a good guy in the area is immediately eviscerated in the media. We actually had the exact same thing happen in the Green Party, where we had another presidential candidate still running named David Rold be one of the lone Assad truth tellers. And I think the Syrian media has been covering this quite some time now. He's actually informed me about this. So to see WikiLeaks come out and leak this is wonderful. To be frank with you, I think it's a nice end of year gift. The problem is that the mainstream media has already weighed in on their opinion about Assad in the region, and I really doubt they're going to all of a sudden change course because it just doesn't fit their narrative at all. Even when they're literally proven wrong, they're not interested in going down that path. And you know, I think for the candidates that still, I think certain candidates just don't want to step on any quote unquote media landmines. I don't think they want to go down that path and acknowledge the truth that we're seeing in front of our eyes. So I think you're going to see.
Well, they've been told their entire careers that the last thing they ever want to do is tell the truth. And they know that there's an overarching structure that involves the intelligence communities of several countries, that they know they're bit players in this. Even the ones running for president know that they're nominally bit players in this. So they're not going to do anything that's going to remove them from their sphere of influence. And that's the real problem, because nobody is holding these people accountable.
Yeah, I think that's where you see kind of the Bernie team going, is this idea that they want to be good Democrats no matter what, because they want that Democratic majority on their side to win the nomination.
Well, and they honestly believe in the process.
Guys, I'm just seeing in our chat, and I want to make sure that this is true, but I'm seeing that somebody in the chat has just said, this is from Emberg33. He said Bernie Sanders' new campaign manager is on WikiLeaks with Neera Tanden on Libya. I don't know if that's true or not, but somebody is saying that. That's extremely interesting. And this is a new campaign manager, this Emberg said.
No, that's FaZe Shakir. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
But yeah, no, he was the guy who got shoved by Neera Tanden for bringing up, I think Hillary or the Clinton Foundation and some donations.
Well,
I don't know. I also think that Bernie Sanders' campaign is filled with more moles than the Caddyshack golf course. So.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's by design. I mean, they really wanted to make an effort within the Democratic Party to prove that they were the party to the faction to grow the Democratic Party, and I think that's why you're seeing some of the media tide turn slightly to acknowledging that he has a big faction. I mean, he's not going away. He's not a bump in the polls kind of candidate. Has been very, very consistent. Probably one of the most consistent candidate in the polls.
You know, I just want to kind of shift gears because we're talking about Bernie Sanders, and I had your friend of the show who's confronted Bernie and many other candidates, and the fact that he's talked about being aware of the issue when right now, you know, we have now multiple different people, including his friend, over the last few days saying, hey, he's saying he's being sedated in there. He's slowly dying, even though he has a February court date. We don't know he's getting to February, and it's not just a magical day. You know, it could get postponed another couple weeks, months. He doesn't have access to the type of documentation he needs, and he does not look healthy in this photograph. Let's be honest. We have so many doctors that have now signed on saying that, you know, basically he's being tortured. The United States is allowing the British government to torture this guy on behalf of our policy, which is bullshit. I mean, this indictment is horrific. People should be standing up against it. The organization, once again, is still the most valid organization, putting out real documents exposing the military-industrial complex. And the lack of media coverage, even in the alternative media. It's great that Jimmy Dore's covering it, but it goes so far beyond partisanship. It's alarming. How do we change it in 2020? How do we go beyond the Bernie? If Bernie Sanders isn't going to help us, who do we get to help us, guys?
So,
Okay.
For me, I would say the answer is we help ourselves. There's no heroes. No one's coming to save us. There's no white knights on horses riding in. Like, we as activists, as the people on the ground, as the ones who are intimately aware, like even if you're not acting in your local community or involved in some sort of activist group, we know, and I feel, me personally, like I have a responsibility to take that to actually act within the community, because I'm one of the people that knows what's going on right now. So there's something we like to shout out, and it's the idea of decentralized activism. It's literally just doing what you can with the time, money, and resources that you have. Everyone has lives. We live in a neoliberal shit show, but we can all do something, whether it's once a day, once a week, or just whenever you can. Go out in the street, shake hands, pass out flyers, put up posters on telephone poles, go to city council meetings and talk about these kinds of issues. Because history is not made from people just waiting. But to shout out something
regardless of what Barack Obama says.
Right.
Regardless of that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to shout out what we're doing in DC real quick, because we have a protest planned from, I want to say it's February 24th, the beginning of Assange extradition hearing, running all the way through February 29th with live vigils happening in DC.
Yes.
So we have a GoFundMe link. The same thing as well, we're trying to get Taylor and Steve to London to actually cover Julian's trial outside of Belmarsh prison. So if you could donate to that, I'm sure we'll throw the GoFundMe link into the chats. It's also in the show notes in the description. So that would be really cool if you could help us kind of take a whack at that to be able to make it out there and give like true coverage of the situation and what's going on.
Yeah, Andrew and I will be going to DC this coming week, actually early, to do a big interview with Lee Camp on Redacted Tonight, and that's sort of going to be kicking off, and we'll start releasing details of what and where we're going to be on those dates, and starting to invite people, starting to get all the other Assange groups in the U.S. we've been communicating and have been helping us plan. So we are really excited about this to really converge on to Washington, D.C. Assange supporters have been growing this past year and have been planning more and more events. And so the fact that we can bring us all together into one spot, it's going to be pretty amazing. And, you know, if you cannot make it to DC, please plan an action during that week, wherever you are located. It still matters and it still makes a difference and it still helps people know that we care and that we are opposed to Assange's extradition to the US.
And it's not just free speech groups like pro-Assange groups that are doing this. I've reached out to multiple LGBT groups, literally every single one that signed the 2016 letter to President Obama that got Chelsea Manning's sentence commuted in the first place. I've called the heads of every one of those, left dozens of voicemails over this week, sent out probably 40 emails. So I'm trying, and I hope other people can get involved in asking groups to do this, to try to get them to plan their own events around that time in DC or in their local communities where they're acting. So if you are connected with any group or you know anyone in an activist group, see if you can try to get them to plan like an anti-tyranny or anti-imperialism or pro-Assange event around that same time in the end of February.
And also, too, if you happen to go to other activist protests or demonstrations that are unrelated to free speech and Julian Assange, if you bring a sign, make sure on the other side of that sign you have Free Assange or wear a WikiLeaks t-shirt. So you can also not only fight for the cause that you are, the demonstration that you're going to, but you could also bring the Free Assange message there as well and get some of those people on board and kind of get them to also support Julian as well.
Well, I guess I'm going to jump back in. What?
Jason, you mentioned Tariq Dodd a couple of times now.
Yeah.
Not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, Tariq will be on the Vigil series with us, as well as Greek Emmy on Twitter. I don't know.
So, Steve, I've got you in the little spotlight here.
And Somerset Bean will be on with us on January 12th.
Oh, that's right. Now what, Jay?
I got you in the spotlight. How do you feel about the fact that the 27th comes around? The fourth release here includes the email. It's a pretty short page and a half email. I've highlighted that one where it shows, listen, there is no toxicology that showed there was any chlorine attack whatsoever. And the open source videos also didn't show that. This is on the 27th. Then on the 29th, we have these strikes against supposed Hezbollah militias, where in Iraq and Syria, literally 2 days after this leak. And now we obviously have the situation in Baghdad. We have this, proxy war that's moving up. Do you feel that this was a response because of these leaks? And now with somebody like Hadid in the national media leaving and starting to get, more and more people talking about it, because now it is a term that some in the alternative media are talking about. Do you think this is a strategy by, the military industrial complex to keep ignoring the fact that that was a fake attack in Syria, that we went in there with the CIA in 2012? How do you feel about this?
Yeah. I mean, that's not even a head scratcher at this point. Look, anytime any information about Syria comes out that is counter to what the military industrial complex, the global intelligence community wants, anytime that happens, there is automatically within 48 hours an incident that takes up 99.9% of media coverage and gives the United States a reason to drop some bombs. In this case, Iran has been on our hit list for over a decade. It was 2005 when General Wesley Clark named off the countries that were on our to-do list, and Iran is the last one standing. So whatever we can do. Look, Donald Trump needs a war. He's about ready to have an economic collapse. The Democratic establishment can't get him on impeachment, but the citizenry can get him on working 3 jobs to survive, on another impending financial collapse, which I don't know if we're going to be able to avoid this year. He needs a reason to take the spotlight off of his actual failings, not the ones that the media make up because the orange man bad, but his actual failings. This is all part of that. 100. You're absolutely right. I think that it's to look at it as if it's not related at this point, it is selling yourself something.
Plus, he genuinely hates Iran, and I think that was something different than what happened with Syria. Because with Syria, he really likes Erdogan. He really likes Turkey. So he really liked the idea of giving authority to that area to Turkey and his buddy Erdogan. I mean, that to me seems to be as an individualized policy at every single country. But going back just to decentralized activism for just a minute, here in the Baltimore area where I'm from, there was a young man who never had an arrest before, no problems with the authority, young black man on the wrong side of town, literally. And the sheriff's department took him in. He was in jail overnight over a weekend, and he apparently committed suicide, according to the sheriff's department in jail. And of course, that's complete BS. It's total nonsense. But focal folks in Baltimore were literally saying, this is garbage. We know this kid didn't commit suicide. We know this young man with a son and daughter didn't commit suicide. His mother was out there protesting with us, and we're making the connections, like us in the socialist world. We're making the connections, saying like the exact same kind of thing that they're doing to Julian Assange right now in BELMARSH, they've been doing to African Americans in Baltimore for decades. These are the connections that we have to make. We have to show that these fights are connected. And that they don't have the ultimate authority. They can't get away with sedating Assange and torturing him in prison. They can't get away with what they're doing to Chelsea Manning. And I think that's the next step for activists that care about those elections and have that pet candidate they want to talk about. Okay, fine. You don't like Julian Assange? Chelsea Manning is in prison as well. Chelsea Manning was pardoned by your best buddy, Democratic, holy cow, Barack Obama. Okay, so Trump literally called out Chelsea Manning and Obama pardoning her. So are they gonna agree with Trump? Are they gonna just let Chelsea Manning rot in prison, or are they gonna take action? I think there's ways to pin them into a corner because their logic is so ludicrous and so stupid. Whatever Trump does bad. Okay, fine. Well, there's ways to get them, and unfortunately, this is the only time they're going to be accessible. And so I love what Dak is doing, because that gotcha, getting them on stage is better than when they're in the White House and they won't even, you can't even get through security. So this is the time.
And I hope we start getting questions to candidates, people like normal folks that go to their events, asking them about the OPCW leaks to see what they say, because they're not going to get asked anywhere else except for people on the ground.
And tape it. Tape it. I can't
Yes.
believe Dak's videos have not gone viral. It is crazy to me that his videos confronting
Honestly, it makes sense. Like, why are they going to let them go viral? Like,
What's crazy though is that 10 years ago it would have.
Yep.
5 years ago it would have.
But you know
The
what,
fact-
Steve, 10
Oh,
years
what?
ago, the alternative, the so-called Tomorrow News Today of the world, they would have been all over it, and they would have at least sparked it. And they don't even acknowledge that these people exist. They don't even acknowledge that Tulsi Gabbard is anti-war. Yeah, I get it. She's CFR. Someone just sent me the John Podesta masterminded her campaign nonsense. And I'm like, listen, I've shown you those emails. When it came, to the nuts of the matter, what did she do? She said, fuck you to Podesta. She said, fuck you to Hillary Clinton. And she supported Bernie Sanders when Bernie Sanders wouldn't support Bernie Sanders. That shows me that she's got more sack than just about everybody else on that side, no matter what my agreements are. I don't like the idea of a universal basic income. The fact is, again, she's the only person standing up for Julian Assange, for free speech, for a free press, and that is so important right now. And to my audience, please,
Jason.
yeah.
Actually, go ahead.
I just wanted to say to my audience to please consider supporting these guys and their GoFundMe to get them out to London so that we can get firsthand accounts of Julian Assange, of the situation. We can maybe set some things up with his law team, maybe get them on this program. Networking is everything, guys. And if you guys want them to network on the ground, have actual human-to-human conversation, not just, keyboard warrior, keyboard cowboy bullshit, which is great. But real action is so important, guys. And like I said, those Dak videos should be viral everywhere. When you look at how much the military-industrial complex is making on a daily basis, they've got all the resources in the world, and we've basically got each other, Andrew.
That's true. And
if
Andrew,
you can, with that Raytheon stock, hold on, Taylor, wait a second. If we could jump back to the Raytheon stock, click to the 1 month view, because you can actually see as things are happening in the world, Raytheon stock goes down and then shoots right back up.
Yep.
I wanted to say something about the trip to London for Jason's viewers who have not heard Steve or I speak about what we plan on doing there. So the reason we want to go there is because we know that this is not going to be covered. The Julian Assange full extradition hearing in February is not going to be covered fairly or accurately. Steve and I both have journalism backgrounds. We are able to cover this. We know this case very well, and we will be live streaming as frequently as possible. We will be live streaming when it's necessary and there's something to show you guys throughout the court hearing during the day. And then also at night, probably at the hotel or wherever, we are going to also have just a live stream where we recap everything that happened that day and answer all of your questions. So it's well worth it if you can contribute. It's extremely helpful for us, and we are very grateful for that. But we will be giving you guys all of the details, and we will be providing you with the truth, because we know that, of course, the mainstream media that will probably cover this but not give it a lot of coverage are going to, of course, fabricate things, because we know historically they have done so with this case. And then also Christy and Andrew have their events in DC, and donations will also go to those very important protests. So they will be staying stateside, and Steve and I will be going to London. So we are grateful for your donations. And then also, if you can share that link, that's also really helpful. Share it on social media. We really appreciate that.
I don't want to make this sound like a pledge drive, because this is totally unprompted, but I just want to say, whenever you see any candidate talk about the stance on Julian Assange, for all the candidates out there, any mainstream media reporter even will reference sort of inadvertently the amazing work that you all have done. Particularly some of Taylor's articles are referenced like all the time, and people know that she's the one behind that brilliant work, even if they're not getting the credit. So you all are doing a really amazing work, and you are getting the word out because people need to know where their candidates stand. It can't just be my candidate's amazing because I don't know, I shook his hand once, I live in New Hampshire, or because I have a button of him, or her. That's just not a good enough reason. We're a smarter society than that. We should be able to hold our people to account. And this is the only time to hold them to account. This is it. They're not going to get more accessible after this race. So do it now.
So we just got a $17 donation, I see. Thank
Yes.
you.
It was an anonymous one, so we don't have a name to thank, but thank you for the donation.
And once again, I really do hope that my audience supports these guys. This is on-the-ground journalism. They're talking to people like Tariq Hadid. They are having people go ask hard questions, put it on video, put it out for the world to see. Taylor is doing articles. These are weekly vigils. I may not be with them next week, but hopefully the week after that. And hopefully we'll have progressed. I hope you guys get to at least $2,000 by then, because it is important that you guys get out there and get on the ground. I mean, if anybody really needs to, it's you, because you're the ones focusing on this issue. If you had to give a shout out to anybody else that I'm missing, obviously not the John Pilgers and the Robert Fists of the world that have been on top of this in the European kind of semi-mainstream press, but what other, independent journalists do you feel are giving this subject the attention it deserves?
So the two that I would say,
Without a doubt,
just
Gordon Dimmick.
I was going to say Gordon Dimmick, and then also The Juice. They're an Australian political satire group, but they do really, really good videos about Assange that really help educate people about the situation. And they also have a couple that Julian appeared on himself personally too.
Yeah,
So
they
Gordon
did one
Dimmick-
before he was in the embassy, and then one when they actually went to the embassy, and they're really funny, and they really show Julian Assange's sense of humor and lightheartedness. That was back at a time when things were a little less dire for him, but they are a great, I don't know if you want to call them political satire, but because really they're telling some really hard truths about their country and the world.
They present it
Yeah,
in
I mean,
an
that's what
interesting, fun, different way.
Yeah.
satire at its best is the most accurate thing in the room. It should be scalpel like in how it works. And once again, we should mention Sunday, January 12th. Gordon Dimmick will be streaming on his channel. I will be streaming on my channel, Slow News Day. And we'll also be streaming here. And we will kick off at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time with Tariq and with Somerset Bean and with Emmy. And that will be fantastic. And the whole purpose of that show really is not only to highlight what's happened to Tariq Hadid, but also to fundraise for this trip, because we're getting down to the wire here. And if Bernard Jesus Sanders can have 5 million individual donations with an average of $22, I feel like us schlubs can get a couple of grand to go do actual journalism.
I think we can get you at least a couple grand and hopefully into about $5,000. I'm almost going to close out, guys, but I want to let everybody know. You can go right now. You need to go right now to Action4Assange on YouTube. This is going to continue for a few more hours. Remember, you can help them out. You can donate right here at their GoFundMe. When you go and subscribe to their channel right now, you'll also see a link to this information. And if you haven't done the homework yourself and checked out the OPCW leaks, what are you waiting for? It's a click away. You have no excuse, all right? You have zero excuse. The information is there. You don't need somebody in a fancy little suit and a nice haircut and some great lighting to tell you what they're all about. It's here. It's the information age. Use it. I'm closing it out with you guys. You tell me who wants to close it out on your end, guys.
So, it doesn't matter. Steve, you want to?
Yeah, for everybody that's watching on Jason's channel, I just want to thank you guys for being a part of this tonight. I hope you will be return guests. We have these vigils every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And yeah, please go to WikiLeaks, read the OPCW reports, read and retain as much as you can so that you can, be a little bit more armed when you encounter mainstream bullshit.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And
we'll see you guys soon. And, keep up the great work. Ian, it was great meeting you. And once again, everybody, Action, the number 4 Assange, to go and finish it out with those guys for the next several hours. I encourage you to go over there right now. All right. So, folks, if you like my work, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get rid of you guys, but I'm trying to do 3 things at once.
No, stay for it. Stay for it. You deserve credit too.
Later, Andrew. I'll see you guys later, man. So, everybody, I'll see you guys on the flip side. I appreciate you coming in for this one. We're going to do this twice a month. And, yeah, you know how the deal goes. We try to do the right thing here. So, Action4Assange, that's where they're at. If you want to support me, you can thumbs this video up. You can sub share. You can go check out all my documentary films, Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture. Let's see. And then we're doing all sorts of videos here, usually 3 to 7 times a day, although we did like an hour-long one here. We may do one more. And if you want to financially support me, this is the last day to do it. Actually, tonight I will be putting up a new GoFundMe for the new year for 2020, and we're trying to grow here. I spent an hour on the phone with a radio guy trying to get back on the radio. No mas, no dice. Tough. But I'm going to try, and I got myself a plan. If you want to know what that plan is, watch the little video that's going to go with Burmese Brigade. Not Media Month. Well, it's going to be Media Month 7, but 2020. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the flip.